there's so much more value to the game than just being a sick mechanical player. And basically, I would say what makes a good player is like 30 to 40% mechanics, and then the rest is like, I don't know, probably like something to do like their emotional state and being a good support. Typically, making like being a good support versus like a good carry. Those numbers basically will shift, obviously, because you have things you're stronger about, and it kind of goes with like sports too, right? Basically, go where your strengths lie. So if like you're a really smart player but you're not that good at hitting your buttons, you probably want to play like 5 role, right? But if you're really good at hitting your buttons, I would say like that's more tied into like the 4 role. I'd say like there's certain roles that kind of go hand in hand together with like basically what complements you and why you're good at that role. So for example, I think carry and 5, they go hand in hand. Usually you're going to be like not as mechanically skilled as say like a mid player or 4 role player or even an offlaner, but like your game sense might be really good, right? You can win your lane really easily. And like I'm talking about with ease, right? You don't have to fucking force some crazy shit like a 4 role player would, where you're like going for all these crazy kills that don't actually amount to anything. But like a good carry player and a good 5 role will just win the lane casually by pulling and being more efficient at the lane and knowing how to move around the map, right? So again, it's really important to understand what makes you strong at like what role in Dota, especially when you're picking a role. So like maybe you came to this video trying to figure out how to be a good support player, and through it you found out, okay, maybe I'm not actually good at support and I should go play carry. It's really important to understand, again, like I said, with like the whole previous and next level thing. If you break the game down into like a lot of these little subsections, it kind of makes just getting better at the game and like making a plan to getting better, because I'm assuming that's why most people watch coaching and educational content, is like basically pave this way to becoming some like tier 1 to 3 player, where it's like those players didn't just get there from playing. Usually some players are just naturally that gifted, but typically it's from very heavy planning. Like for example, I used to play mid a lot, and I made a decision to switch because basically there wasn't many support players. But if I were to play support and like do my decision over again, I would 100% still consider the 4 role, because I know I'm really mechanically like skilled at a lot of shit that most people aren't. So it just makes playing support as a 4 like much more value. But if I were to play 5, right, it's like I know that basically I'd have to kind of sacrifice my mechanical skill and focus more on like, so like I said earlier, like basically saying these really like important fucking like team aspect related shit, like, hey guys, we should be grouping up top, and like not farming. Core players typically are going to be really greedy with their movements and their decision making. They're going to be thinking like, oh, this would be a good time to just go farm. But like sometimes if everyone's dead and you can like force some crazy, really good push and just get a free Rax, someone like a good carry or a 5-year-old typically are going to make that call, because they're going to be thinking about something like that. But like again, like someone like a 4-roll or a mid are usually going to be more like focused on getting kills and shit. That's why like a lot of 4 players are having trouble right now.
Sometimes that's the offlane role too. Like it depends. Like sometimes
yeah, the
a patch
offlaner
might
is
happen.
weird. That's why I didn't really like.
Offlaner
like I
is
said,
different
how
now.
1 and 5 kind of like pertain to each other, and so does the 2 and 4 in terms of like mechanical skill and like their decision making and how they think about the game. But like offlaner is typically like you kind of just feel like offlaner is just a very sacrificial role. Offlaner is just so like selfless. You kind of just do whatever your team needs. It's like, hey guys, I'm here. Do you want me to play like a core heavy guy? Do you want me to be Timber Saw? I can do that. It's like, oh, you guys don't want me to do that? I'll just go die a bunch as Magnus and RP occasionally and give you empower a lot. Offlaner always kind of like just shifts to whatever's needed, but
depends on the patch though. Sometimes it, like there's a couple patches like where offlane is just Enchantress and Brood every game. Like
yeah, you have to
like
win your lane. Exactly. Fine. Basically, try to figure out what you're good at in Dota, and it makes picking a role very easy. Or if you want to just get better at the game overall, which I personally, that's how I learned Dota, was like, I swapped roles all the time as a carry player in Dota 1 and on up until like, for like 6 years, and then I switched to mid for 3 years, and then I switched to fucking support for the last like 4 or something, right? Like, basically all this shit's really extensive, and I've learned so much over all this course of time. And sometimes when I didn't have a team or didn't really care about like picking a role, I just kind of play whatever. Basically, I think it's really beneficial to understand all these roles, because then it makes picking one and like mastering one way, way easier. Because like I wouldn't even say I mastered any of those other roles, I just kind of played them. But like support, I would say I mastered it, because basically I made a decision when I started trying all these roles out and really thinking about why a player is good at that role. Sorry, for example, someone like Jerax or something. And basically I just decided 4-role fit me really well. It's like I played mid, but I would actually have a lot of hard time in like the late game making decisions sometimes. I'd like get myself killed. Obviously as a support, that's not a big deal if you get yourself killed for like, another player. If it's worth it, obviously the trade. If you trade for like a core. But, like as a core hero, sometimes I die for support because I just think it's fun, right? Just like go and do some crazy shit. It's like that just doesn't fly. So like if you're kind of a more chaotic player and you don't really have that like frame of thinking about the game where it's like you're thinking about creeps and all this shit, then you probably don't want to be a support player.
It's hard to figure out what your best role is. It honestly even depends sometimes on like how you're feeling.
Well, it's like also this, right? Like, say you play with a group of friends and you have your friend who thinks he's fucking Dendy and always plays mid, right? So like some people are stuck on these roles that they played from just playing with friends for fun. It's really important to like re-identify yourself. It's like, okay, am I playing mid because I'm actually good at it? Like, or am I just hitting this brick wall because not necessarily I'm a bad player, but like I'm not a good mid player. And that's okay. You don't have to be fucking like, you know, miracle and be good at everything you do in Dota. Some people are just really talented. They're just really good at every role. They kind of just play the game really well. There's nothing wrong with being good at just a role. It's not a big deal.
There's plenty of people that are just good at a specific role in
Exactly.
in Dota.
And there's gonna be heroes, for example, that just are you're better at. For example, like if you fight a lot and you play shit like 4-roll, when you play carries, something like Troll's really not gonna fit your style. Something more like Gyrocopter, who wants to fight and play off of those spell timings rather than item timings, like, you know, hitting level 6 on Gyro, rotating the enemy tower, taking a free tower, taking a good group fight with cooldown. That's like gonna be more relevant to you than say like, oh, I need to hit my 15-minute Battle Fury timing or something on that, like anti-mage. I don't know. When I coach people, the number one thing I always got, hands down, no matter what they wanted to learn, like they'd come in saying, I want to learn warding, and then they would leave like, oh fuck, I don't know anything about Dota anymore. That happens so much, they'd have these existential crises because they come in thinking, I'm going to learn how to play X role. And then halfway through it, I'm like, you're not really good at farming creeps. What heroes do you like? And I'd sit there and break down the game for them. I'm like, you like fighting people? Why are you playing carry? It's like, why are you doing that? And they're like, oh, I don't know. My friends just kind of made me play carry. And I'm like, you should consider playing mid. And then like 2 weeks later, they'll come back like, oh my god, thank you so much for the tips. I really enjoyed mid. Or like some guys like, oh, I don't mind not farming. It's like, well, you should probably play support if you don't mind being on like the back lines and like just making good calls and shit. Like, be honest with yourself too. I think that's like the most important part of getting better at the game. And I feel like support players typically are better at doing that because you're playing a more supplemental role rather than like, I'm the star of the show, I'm anti-mage coming in at 30 minutes, and my name's Chad, and I fucking kill everyone and get a rampage, right? You're not typically going to be doing that on Tusk. You're going to be like throwing some shards and maybe, you know, punching people and stopping TPs and stuff. It's not all that rewarding sometimes. You don't always look like you're saving the game.
Doesn't feel rewarding.
But... It doesn't really always feel all that rewarding, but it's still a good feeling when you leave the game and you get a win versus a loss, so that's really what matters.
People love support players, though. Like,
that's honestly the most rewarding part about supporting is you get players like BSJ who you can tell genuinely appreciate good supporting and proper support play. It makes it feel like it's all worth it at the end. A lot of personality types that usually go hand in hand with what role they play. Typically, you're going to see more confident players and like basically their ability to play alone rather than wanting to play off of people, and like more aggressive players. Typically, the ones that are more cocky are going to be the ones on 4-role support and mid. But the ones who are kind of more like laid back are going to be the ones on offlane or carry typically. Like, typically players that are really quiet and they kind of like, I don't know, just like randomly coming in and being the hero, but like they don't really talk about it or like really want credit. Those are going to be like the carry players. Mid players are all about having that fucking fame and glory and landing dank sun strikes in the fountain and stuff, right? And then you have like 5-role players who are usually really authoritative, but they're like not actually that skilled when it comes to like pressing abilities typically. Like most 5-role players are just really smart about the game. They're just really smart brain people. Like Sand King, for example, or like PPD. Then if you look at PPD's play, people regard PPD as a very great captain, but his actual play itself, not even a flame to PPD. I have a lot of respect for the guy. I think he's obviously one fucking TI and shit, right? Like his actual mechanical play is very questionable a lot of the time. For example, like on Skywrath Mage or something, I don't think that's the hero for PPD. You know, you want PPD on something like Winter Wyvern who can set up fights and like push lanes out, and while he's pushing lanes out, he's concocting this like perfect game plan, right? He's like telling you where you should be on the map on a carry and like telling you what lane to push out so that you can get to mid and get the racks for free and stuff like that. That's what you want as a 5-role player. Like what heroes you play matters a lot, because you can play those roles, but typically those heroes are in that role for a reason because they're just really good at that role. So like you're not gonna go roam on Invoker just because you're really good at pressing spells. It doesn't magically make Invoker good at roaming. So like it's relevant to a degree, but don't get crazy with it, basically. So like for example, if you're a 5-role player and Bane, you have the option of like Bane, Winter Wyvern, Skywrath Mage, and Tusk, right? Because Tusk is a decent 5. It's like, alright, am I good at casting spells? okay, I'm not, then I probably want to play something simple. Play something like, I don't know, fucking Bane, you know, just grip someone and stand there and do nothing. Or like sleep and set up for your team because you're making all these crazy calls to set up, right? I'll just give another really good example. If anyone watches like old MVP or like the Korean players, like Febi is a perfect example. Febi and Dubu, they like swap with 4 and 5. It's because they both play such like a mechanical heavy, like they basically are both a 4 player, but they pick heroes like Tusk and shit in the 4 and like, or for the 4 and the 5. Like they'll have like Tusk and Undying, like these heavy bruiser guys who are just running around causing all this fucking havoc and chaos in the lanes and just like forcing all these crazy issues on towers and like grouping up really early and like just being really tanky and hard to deal with. So again, it's like you have to really know what you're good at and like if it actually can work. Because like even them, they'll have a lot of like patches where their team just sucks, and it's not because they're bad players. It's just they have a playstyle and they stick to it, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And I have a lot of respect for the fact that they do that, even though it gets them, you know, a lot of losses. But then some tournaments they'll just get first because they're just so fucking strong. Because they're just sitting there running these heavy fucking aggressive lineups where they're diving you at 10 minutes into the game with like PAA and bristleback and shit. If I'm a good Lina player from playing mid and I switch to 4, if Lina's good as a 4, I'm gonna do good in that patch as a 4. Like say like someone steals my mid lane, right? Like I'm just gonna go off lane and like dual off lane and play Lina really well because I'm just used to it from mid. Same with like Leshrac and stuff. Like it's a lot of value from learning other roles. You can learn how to play heroes and like basically just think about the game in a different way. So that's why it's also good to like really think about if you fit your role. Because again, if you're not like too aggressive, the offlane a lot of times is like you're getting fucked, but you need to know when to turn that one specific time to where suddenly you're winning the lane and like you're the one hitting them.
It's like always one time too. There's
exactly,
always like a one turning point. And if you miss it, you fucking know it for the rest of the game.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. If you're not an offlane player and you miss that one opportunity, then just don't play offlane. It's just not your role. There's nothing like to be ashamed about. Because I know a lot of people just write off Dota eventually. They hit that wall where they're like, I just suck, I can't get out of 2K. It could just be because you're playing the wrong fucking role. It's like really that simple, actually. Because if you're watching a video on like how to get better at Dota, chances are you do care enough to where you could think about, okay, should I even be playing this role? Because I think that's super fucking important.